Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. FPL Consult here, and today we're going to take a look at the most selected 11 players, but I've also picked out some players on the bench so that we can form the current template team, and we'll take a look at all these players, go through them one by one, and I'll share with you guys what I think about the current template. So hopefully you guys do enjoy this video, and if you do, please give it a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here. This video today is sponsored by DraftHound, as you guys can see right above me. If you guys are interested, after taking a look at some of the features later on, you can click a link in the description down below and it will allow you to try DraftHound for free. Right, so let's take a look at the team right now, and the team value of this team is 100 million. The formation for the template, which is quite intriguing, is actually a 4-4-2 formation instead of the 3-5-2 that we've been seeing all this while, because a lot of people are going for the midfielders. They are all value options right now, so it does seem like even though the 3-5-2 formation is the current favored formation, that the template still kind of favors the 4-4-2. We'll take a look at the percentages and also some of the players right now. So Aaron Ramsdale is the keeper of choice. Now, Aaron Ramsdale is at 27.8% team selected by, and basically what that means is that more than a quarter of the game has him as their keeper. Now, there is good reason for this. Arsenal do have a really good run of fixtures all the way up till the midway point, where we will have to use our wildcard sometime in the midway point of the season, game week 19, around there, right? Aaron Ramsdale has a great run of fixtures all the way up till then. Maybe a sprinkle here and there of some tough fixtures, but in general a lot of good fixtures, and Arsenal's defense is one of the better ones in the Premier League, so you kind of get why people would be picking Aaron Ramsdale as well. But at 5.0 million, it is important to note that he does take up an extra 0.5 million. So if you guys do have to spend that money elsewhere, I do suggest downgrading Aaron Ramsdale to another 4.5 keeper, and then using that 0.5 elsewhere if you really do need it, because personally I don't think I'll be going for Aaron Ramsdale as it stands. Possibly I may go for Onana, right? But that would be for other reasons as well. We'll wait to see whether it's confirmed. But Aaron Ramsdale, for now, it feels like I would rather go for a Gabriel in defense. So for me, I don't really agree with the template pick. I probably would go for a 4.5 keeper. Right now, in defense, there's Trippier, Trent, Shaw, and Estupiñán. All of them with pretty high ownerships, but as you guys can see, Estupiñán is at 51.6%, and that is staggering. And that's simply because, as you guys would know, he has a great run of fixtures for the first 3, but the thing is, after that, in game week 4 he has Newcastle, in game week 5 he has Manchester United, so we do have to tread a little cautiously here. Estupiñán, as we all know, is a very attacking defender. He always goes up and gets crosses into the box, and that's where he can get those assists and potentially double-digit hauls if he does keep a clean sheet as well. So I think the fixtures are there for Estupiñán at 5.0 million as well. It does seem like he's too good value to ignore. So he's also a pick that will be in my team, and I would agree with this 51.6% selection. Now, the next player that I want to talk about here is Luke Shaw. Now, Luke Shaw is at 34.9%, but this is actually a pick that, I guess you could go either ways. You could go with him or you could go without him, and that's simply because Manchester United don't have the easiest run, right? They do play Tottenham, and they also play Newcastle in the opening few game weeks, so I don't think those are games where Luke Shaw would be keeping clean sheets. But as we know, Luke Shaw is on a couple of set pieces. He's also, going forward quite consistently to get crosses into the box. Those kind of defenders that we want, right? The attacking threat is always there with Luke Shaw, right? So the problem is whether we should go for him now or maybe wait a little while after he's done with those tough fixtures and then hop on him later on. 34.9% of you guys, or the template, has basically selected him, right? So there we go. And next up we have Trent Alexander-Arnold. 33.0%. Now, I actually do think that this is one of the seasons where Trent has had the lowest ownership going into the season. Usually once the game has launched and we reach this stage of the preseason, he's usually at about 50 to 60% ownership. But of course, last season wasn't great for Liverpool, and in particular, I think it was okay for Trent. The first part may have been a little bit shaky for him, but he did pick up in the second half of the season. He found himself in a new inverted fullback role, and that has kind of allowed him to springboard his points and his performance towards the back end of last season. So coming into this season, a lot of us are expecting that he probably fill in that role again, and if he does, that is kind of in a midfield position for a player that is listed as a defender. And Trent, of course, he's on set pieces. He has a wicked free kick as well, as we all know, right? So 33.0%. I think the concern here is that he's 8 million, right? And the things you could do by downgrading him to maybe a 6 million or a 5 million defender, the things you could do with that extra 2 million, right, is incredible. You could actually afford, a more premium midfielder, as you guys will see later on, right? But basically, the decision would largely depend on whether you want to bang or gamble on Trent doing well in the first couple of game weeks, right? So 33% of you guys have chosen him. And then for Trippier, 34.1%. This is actually a pick that I don't really agree with. I'm not sure why people have gone so heavy on him. I mean, for obvious reasons, I think he scored really well last season, and that's probably why people are picking him. But I do think like he could be a little bit of a trap going into game week 1, and that's simply because Newcastle have a terrible run of about 4 to 5 fixtures, and after that then the fixtures pick up, right? So my plan would probably be to not have Trippier in my own team and then jump on Trippier later on. He is at 6.5 million, so he is in that bracket of defenders that is slightly harder to get to, right? Because most of the other defenders we'd be going for, aside from Trent, are about 5 million or 5.5. So swapping around that range would be easy, but getting up to Trippier may be a little bit difficult, so it is something to consider as we go later on into the season. So before we take a look at the midfielders, I do want to tell you guys about Draft Hound. Draft Hound is an FPL manager's dream, and the best part is it's free to use. There's a full suite of useful tools like fixture analysis that you see here, with winning odds, clean sheet odds, and over 2 goals odds. The one that I use really often is the clean sheet odds, which really helps when I'm stuck between which defender to bench and which defender to start, which, as you guys know, can be the difference between a green and a red arrow. Now, aside from this, there's also dream teams based on predicted points, which is also where the data for today's video has come from. And dream teams is also pretty accurate in picking out some good differentials and budget picks for the run-in. For the stats junkies, if you'd like an in-depth analysis on a player, then player rankings is the place to go, where Draft Hound lets you analyze predicted points and also compare the probability of their goal involvement. So you guys get the idea. There's loads of useful tools in Draft Hound, and I won't cover every single one, but I have to highlight my favorite feature before we get back to the video, and that is this assistant manager tool, where you can import your own FPL team, and Draft Hound literally manages your team for you by suggesting potential transfers and optimizing your lineup for you to gain maximum points. So I cannot recommend Draft Hound enough. It's really helped me to improve my game, and if you guys are interested, there is a link in the description and also in the pinned comment where you can try Draft Hound for free. And for those of you guys who are interested to go a little bit further, there is the paid version as well. So if you guys do sign up for the paid membership, that will also help support the channel, so I really do appreciate if you guys check it out. Do let me know what you think of the app, and I'll be interested to know what you think in the comments down below. So in midfield, there's Saka, Mbeumo, Mitoma, and Marcus Rashford. So one look at the template and you can see that these are players we've been talking about or we've been seeing in drafts, and for good reason, right, for the whole of pre-season up till now. Right, so Saka is the one at the highest ownership at 52.2%, followed by Marcus Rashford at 42%, Mitoma at 38%, and Mbeumo at 25.8%, right? So all of them have good reason for why they're in the template, so we'll go through them one by one. Saka, of course, he's at 8.5 million. His direct competitor or replacement, if you don't want to go for Saka, is Odegaard, also at 8.5, or there's Martinelli at 8.0. But the thing with Saka is that you would think he would keep penalties as well. So in that situation, if you're paying 8.5 million for Odegaard, you might as well go for Saka, who has penalties secured as well, right? So both of them are nailed for minutes, and the benefit of going for Saka would just be penalties. So 52% of you guys have gone for Saka, and there's good reason. I do agree with that. Saka is of course more nailed than Martinelli, who has a little bit of rotation risk, not great, but a slight rotation risk with Trossard coming into the side as well. Now, talking about the next highest owned player is Marcus Rashford. So Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes is quite a tight debate, because Marcus Rashford is at 9 million and Bruno Fernandes is at 8.5 million. So you can bring the argument that Bruno Fernandes is 0.5 million cheaper and he's on penalties, and that's kind of the reason why some people have chosen to go for Bruno Fernandes. But then again, when you take a look at the whole Manchester United team and the way that they structured themselves and the way that they played their attacking football last season, a lot of the plays ended up with Marcus Rashford at the end of the chances, and the number of goals he racked up last season, which was a stellar season for him, right? You kind of feel like this season his role would be very similar, right, and getting in and amongst the goals, and that's kind of the reason why he justifies that 9 million price tag. For me, I am slightly leaning towards Marcus Rashford ahead of Bruno Fernandes, even though Bruno Fernandes has penalties, right? So I do agree with the template on this one. 42% of you guys have also selected him. Now, Mitoma is the next highest owned one, 38.1%. Of course, Mitoma is someone that has really passed the eye test. Towards the end of last season, he kind of dropped off a little bit when he had that patch of scoring very few goals and returning not a lot of points for his owners. But I think looking at the way he played last season, you kind of expect a lot more from him this season, especially the way Brighton are shaping up. They are looking like a really strong side that could definitely vie for a consecutive European places in this season as well, right? So I do think like Mitoma is someone that would be key to their attack. The way that he plays, the way that he gets past defenders, just feels as if he's going to get a lot of chances, and also he would be at the end and putting shots at the back of the net. So you do think like Mitoma would be a really good option. I do agree with this 38.1% as well. Obviously the replacement for Mitoma would be Solly March if you don't want to go for Mitoma, but I do feel like I still favor Mitoma a little bit more. And then there's also Pascal Gross, who's an interesting one, right? He will probably be on set pieces and penalties, you would think, now that McAllister has gone, but we'll take a look at them pre-season. For now, Mitoma is kind of the one that is far exceeding the rest of them in terms of popularity right now. Now, Mbeumo is at 25.8%, and there is also good reason for this one. Even though Ivan Toney is out of the squad, Mitoma is someone that would probably fill in the striker role. There is some talk that maybe Schade would fill in the number 9 spot. Maybe Mbeumo would come outside to the wing. There's also Johan Wissa as well. But probably penalties would still stay with Mbeumo, right? Even that, there is a little bit of a doubt. We will have to see pre-season whether Mbeumo continues to take penalties. But if all that falls into place, which is currently the assumption of most FPL managers, that Mbeumo will be playing as a striker and he would be playing, he would be on penalties as well, basically taking over the Ivan Toney role. In that situation, if he does play in that position, you have an ideal situation where Mbeumo, who is listed as a midfielder, is playing as a forward on penalties in real life. So basically, it can't get any better than that, and that's kind of why a lot of people are going for Mbeumo at 25.8%. Right, so these midfielders right here are kind of midfielders that pick themselves. Let me know how many you guys have in your own teams, and let's now take a look at the forwards and those players on the bench. So up front, there's Erling Haaland at 85.8%, and there's Gabriel Jesus at 32.8%. We'll talk about the bench players later on, but focusing on these two first. Haaland is at 85, which is a staggering ownership right now, right? Gabriel Jesus last season at his peak, I think, was about 81 or 82%, right? But it's currently still, quite a couple of weeks to go before the season starts, and it is 85.8% already. So it's incredible. For those of you, I have seen a couple of drafts, incredibly, I've seen a couple of drafts without Haaland. I really do stress that it is pretty important to go with Haaland, right? Because a lot of players are going for him, and aside from that, they're going to captain him as well. So he is that kind of player, as we've seen last season, that has such a great explosive nature. He could go crazy in any game and score a double-digit haul. So for those of you guys who do want to gamble and go without Haaland, of course, if he blanks, then you guys benefit a lot. But I do think like the risk is just too great there, especially with this ownership at 85.8%. And it's just only going to rise, right? So I don't need to speak any more about him. I just feel like he's a lock in any team right now. Right, Gabriel Jesus at 32.8%. Now, Gabriel Jesus is an interesting one as well, because there are a couple of alternatives that you could go for in this second striker position, assuming you're going to go for two forwards, right? Gabriel Jesus is one of those options. You could also go for Nkunku. You could also downgrade and maybe take a punt in, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, etc. But those aren't great picks as well, right? So I do feel like the template has got this one right. 32.8%. Gabriel Jesus does seem like the standout second forward option to pair alongside Haaland, and that's kind of why the template has chosen him. I do feel like the starting fixtures for Arsenal are really good, and say you want to keep him for the long term, if you want to delay your wild card, he's also someone you can keep for a really long time, because Arsenal do have one of the best fixture runs all the way up to the midway point, which is when you would definitely have to use your wild card. If not, you would waste it, right? So Gabriel Jesus, I do think is a pick that I would agree with, and I also do feel like he will continue to keep his spot in the starting 11 even though Havertz has come in, right? We'll take a look at pre-season and see how all these new signings for Arsenal fit into the overall structure of the team, and maybe we can reassess our decisions. But for now, Haaland and Jesus up top. Now on the bench, there's Areola at 29.3% as the 4.0 million backup keeper. I definitely agree with this one. I do think like this season we're going to see more of Areola, and I do think like he will break into the starting 11 really soon. Next up, there's Botman at 29.1%. Now I don't really agree with this one, because at 4.5 million, there's quite a lot of other options that you could go for. There's Pau Torres, there's Mings as well. You could also choose to go for other great 4.5 million options from the other defenses. So I do think like going for Botman, who the way I look at it, if you do reach a situation where one of your starting 11 players are injured in the opening few game weeks and you need to use Botman, he's not really going to be a very useful player for a couple of reasons. His fixtures won't be great in the first couple of games, and on top of that, he's also not someone with a great attacking threat, right? He's basically someone with pretty low attacking output, so I won't be hoping for much from Botman, and that's why I do think like we should replace Botman, and the template has kind of gotten this wrong at 29.1%. Now the next bench option is Surridge at 11.2%. Now he's a 4.5 million forward, so usually people don't put too much thought over this one, but I think Surridge is someone that probably out of all the 4.5 million forwards has the greatest chance to feature, whether it's a start or whether it's coming off the bench. So that's kind of why a lot of people have chosen to go for him. But the only thing I would say is that it is important to be cautious with this third forward spot, because when people wildcard or they transfer players out, usually this third forward drops to about 4.4 to 4.3, right? So you don't want to be losing value unnecessarily. So if you aren't going to use your third forward a lot, I do think like in my position for my own team, I would be choosing a lower owned forward so that I don't lose team value unnecessarily. Now, lastly, the last midfielder is Shannon Baptiste, 5.9%. Now, he's simply only in this team because he is the highest owned 4.5 million midfielder, right? And I do think like he isn't a great option, to be honest, right? So this season, it just so happened that the 4.5 million options for midfielders just aren't great, which kind of begs the question whether the 3-5-2 would be a much better formation to go for, which a lot of us are actually going for, right? So I do think like because of the whole structure and pricing of the midfielders, where a lot of value options are in the middle price bracket, all the way down below, it's not great, right? Players like Shannon Baptiste is basically the pick of the bunch, but it's all just not great. And then up top, among the more expensive premium midfielders, there's Salah, who's really expensive, and then there's De Bruyne at 10.5, Son at 9.0, and it just goes down from there, right? So I do feel like the middle bracket is where we would be targeting, and because of that, I probably would try to favor the 3-5-2 formation at this point in time still, right? But of course, there are merits to going for the 4-4-2. As you guys can see, you fit in one extra defender. So of course, players like Trippier and Botman, as I mentioned, I may not be going for them. Shaw is someone that you could go with or could go without, right? But aside from that, the 4-4-2 formation could also accommodate more defenders with better fixtures. So Aston Villa, for example, right, decent fixtures. So I do feel like this template, I would adjust it to a 3-5-2. But let me know what you guys think, and let me know how many players from this template you have. I'd be interested to know. And of course, do check out Draft Town with the link in the description. Let me know what you think of the app, and I'll catch you guys in more pre-season content very soon. Bye bye.